if you look at icons in a church, we have a pause to let the dog have barked, so we have another 2 minutes. So if you look at icons in a church, are there traditions associated with what is represented in a church and where?
Depending on the size of the church, there's a whole, what we might call canonical or traditional arrangement that icons are placed in certain positions. So for example, normally there might be a dome inside a traditional Byzantine church, and the dome would contain a circular image of Christ as the Pantocrator or Pantocrator or Pantocrator, depending on how you say that. Christ as the one who rules over all things, surrounded by angels, then the four evangelists, and then down below in front of us there's normally an iconostas, which might be several stories high, or it might just be a very simple screen. The two primary images that have to be part of the iconostas are an image of Christ as a teacher, as healer, or usually, or Pantocrator, here on the right side of the iconostas from the viewer's perspective, and on the left side is an image of Mary holding Christ, which is Christ incarnate. So there's actually, those two are required for the celebration of any service in a business. Even in the smallest of churches, we would at least have Christ as a child and Christ as an adult.
Now, on the Latin Rite, the Roman Catholic, they don't necessarily use icons in that same manner, but they do show up in the liturgical canons, or not the canons, but the liturgical books. They may have it on the epistles. They may have it on the gospel. And so, what's the tradition that in which they apply the
In most
utilization?
Western churches, icons are appreciated and even respected, and oftentimes venerated, but they're not a requirement. In the Eastern Christian approach to worship, icons are an essential element. You cannot worship without proper imagery.
Oh, I see.
The Divine Liturgy, unlike the Mass in the West, could be celebrated in a room that's not properly decorated in any particular fashion, except maybe I think they require a crucifix. In the Eastern Church, we have requirements for certain icons to be present.
Wow, okay.
And it's that whole notion that Christ didn't come to just save the intellectual capacity of the human person. We're not all just sitting around thinking about the things of God. We want to see them. We want to touch them. We want to celebrate them with our senses. Because when Christ came out of the tomb, he didn't come out as a brain. He came out as a human being who had his eyeballs intact, which suggests to us that as Christians we can celebrate what we believe in color and form, not just with concepts and ideas.
So when we look at the icons we have here, we see that it is the image is presented on the board. In other representations, there is often some sort of an overlay of metal or other ways of preparing the icon that adds to the image on the board. Who goes down that route, and
There was a development just from a technological perspective in iconography where icons were to be venerated. One of the ways that we venerate an icon is, in addition to making the sign of the cross and bowing our head, we would oftentimes, and I know this is going to scare a lot of people, we kiss the image. Yes, we kiss it. We want to make contact with that, with what we believe. And in that kissing, sometimes, you know, depending on how vigorous people's kissing are and how many people are kissing something, as well as using it for processions and celebrations, icons that get moved around, they get damaged.
Oh, I see, okay.
So as a initially as a protective element, metal coverings were added to the icons. But to be honest, as an iconographer, I have found that some of the metal coverings then get really carried away. They take over the place of the icon, and what you're seeing is the metal worker trying to do icons in metal, which doesn't offend me. But oftentimes all that's showing is maybe just the face or the hands.
Mhm.
And it's no longer protective. It's an art form all in its own right.
Oh, I see, okay. Let's pause there, let's get the dog up.